What is good? We're back. Got the man Chev in the house. What's good, man?
You know me, brother. Any day on this side of the dirt's a good one.
Yes, sir. So we're talking about some guys potentially here who are trying to stay on the other side of the dirt. We got some potential landing spot fallout here, or vets in danger, or dynasty assets you might want to think about maybe selling or potentially buying because maybe things might dip a little for that said player. So we're going to run through some landing spots, and I think we're mostly going to be on the running back side in this conversation because there's just a whole lot more of them in this particular draft. We'll start with some of the trendy, sexy landing spots with the running back class, and then we'll kind of talk about some other, the fallouts of what those may or may not be. And then we'll talk about a couple other spots. And like I said, there's in this draft, 20 teams could draft a running back, right?
Right.
And I think as going through this sheet, it's for the top sexy guys, the top five that are like the locked in top five for pretty much everyone, regardless of what order you have it in. The trendy landing spots, there's not really that much fallout from the big guys. I think it's going to be the Devin Neals and the RJ Harveys, maybe a Sampson, yes, or another running back or two that we're not even putting on that level just yet, who comes in, and there's always one, right, that just comes out of left field and crushes it. Maybe it's a Tootin, maybe it's it's ETN, maybe it's the dude from
Rashard Smith,
maybe it's Rashard Smith, maybe it's the dude from UC Davis or whoever everybody's talking about.
Larison. Hey, we got a Land Larison reference.
Yeah.
2 minutes into the episode. Let's go.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we want to talk about today. The draft's in by the time you listen to this, it'll probably be in a week and a half or so. There's not much more prospect talk I want to do as far as breaking anything down. Let's let the pieces fall as they may, but we can start just trying to speculate. And that's what we're going to do a little bit and try to narrow some things down and talk about some possibilities of some sells throughout this thing. Cause this episode, we're just going to, speculate.
We're in up to something season right now, as Pat McAfee calls it. Everybody's lying right now.
Yes. Everyone's bored. And with what we kind of know, they've all switched it up and thrown it up in the air because the clicks ain't clicking as much unless you do some hot shit right now.
Yeah, you got to be willing to say some unequivocal bullshit right now just to get people to get on the internet and talk about you a little bit. So It doesn't have to be true. We're gonna try to add some color to the picture of what could be some dangerous or perilous spots that you might have blind spots to if you love a guy like Joe Mixon the way that I do, or you're a James Conner shareholder and you're just dead set on him being the guy until 2029 or whatever the case may be. So we're going to talk about it a little bit, and I'm excited about it.
All right. Well, let's start with the bigger guys at the front, the Genties, the Caleb Johnsons, the Hendersons, the Hamptons, the Quinshons, right? The trendy landing spots for those in no particular order. We got Vegas. Right. That's a pretty trendy one. Denver for one of these guys, right? Chicago for one of these guys. And then you have teams like Cleveland. You have teams like the Chargers, potentially Pittsburgh. They ain't scared to draft a running back in the first round. Dallas, who, people have kind of said, well, they maybe they learned their lesson from Zeke, and it's just like, well, this really isn't the same thing as learning your lesson from Zeke. Like if you don't want to pay the guy on the second term, but still, like Zeke was fantastic for that. That was the last time the Cowboys might have been the biggest threat they've been.
Let's not rewrite history because Zeke fell off a cliff. Like you're talking about the guy who's second all time in rushing touchdowns for them. He scored like 65, 70 touchdowns in a 5-year span. So you can't act like it was a bad pick. Was it a bad process pick? Sure, because you could have – we don't have to talk about what they could have done. I don't even want to talk about what the Cowboys could have done because there's, 4 billion other people on the internet that are talking about what if, and then trying to talk themselves into it being the Cowboys year. So fuck the Cowboys. Let's talk about something else.
Yeah. Got that ESPN.
Jerry Jones had a bowel movement today.
Yeah. But And then there's some other ones that kind of popped up here with some top visits, because we've been doing the visit tracker. And while I don't want to get caught up in everything being on the visit tracker mattering, because it doesn't, like people, like you said, it's a bunch of bullshit smoke screens. So you might be bringing in people and have no desire to draft one of these top running backs. But Houston has been doing their due diligence seemingly almost on all of these top running backs. So that kind of popped up first, but we'll come back to that one. Let's look at Vegas. We don't really think there's going to be much fallout if they draft a running back, and they most likely will, right? There's no real fallout to be had there if you're like, hey, we got to move Sincere McCormick or Zamir White, right? We're right?
No, there's no. I mean, nobody's gonna cry over the spilt milk or the lost jobs of Sincere McCormick or Zamir White.
Right.
That they're going to invest in a running back. It's just, do they do it at 6 or do they do it at 37?
Right.
They do it at 37. That gives you a wider range of outcomes of who the player is. They do it at 6. You know what the fucking answer is.
Yeah.
So let's not. We don't have to big brain it. They had Ashton Genty in for a visit. They've had Caleb Johnson in for a visit. One of those guys is the pick at 6, and one of those guys is the pick at 37. But what we can infer is that they are doing a lot of homework on high-end running backs.
Yeah. Yeah. And it has to make sense. And every once in a while, the draft will come and somebody out of left field will take somebody and doesn't really make any sense, i.e. Sharbs with the Kenny Walker thing.
Right.
Not a whole lot of sense being made there. If you want to take the 4th or 5th round running back, fine, but you didn't need to do all that.
Right.
So, Denver, probably no real fallout there.
Yeah, no, I mean, Audric Estime, Jaleel McLaughlin, Tyler Beatty. Tyler Beatty actually went to my high school years and years after I did. But yeah, that always trips me out. I'm like, oh, we had a guy, make it to the NFL. Well, I mean, we had.
You go to Missouri?
Huh? Yeah.
You go to Missouri? Yeah.
Yeah, he went to Missouri, but he went to Briarcrest out of high school. So, Ken Walker's from the same area. But yeah, so the Broncos drafting a running back is, are you going to roll into the season with Jaleel McLaughlin and Audric Estime? No. So who's the guy?
They're just going to hand it to Evan Ingram.
Hey, that might clear a path for some other young stud to step into the Joker role for real. If Evan Ingram's not going to be available, which if you hand him the ball or give him the ball too much, he's not gonna hold up.
Right. So, there's like 2 huge landing spots that we think will get filled by one of the 2 of the 5 RBs that are kind of out there. Then you have Chicago. And here we have one that, could be a replacement. We've already number one, we've seen Ben Johnson operate with 2. We've also seen Ben Johnson have enough of Swift and basically say, get the fuck out of here.
I mean, that's something that nobody's talking about. Like he basically punted Swift. It's like the scene in Anchorman where bud Jack Black punts Baxter off the bridge. He's like, man, get the fuck out of here. Like we've seen enough. So I mean, they upgraded across the board, but what's the likelihood that he comes out of this? If you had to put a percentage on it, that he comes out of this without getting a backfield mate with day 2 capital?
Very low. I'm at like 10 to 15%.
Yeah, exactly. There's no way that they're not spending a top 60 pick on a running back in this draft. And they've got 2 second-round picks in 39 and 41. Right.
Carolina being, I think they got their pick, right?
Yep. This is the last of the Bryce Young. Jesus, I got Breece Hall on my brain.
So just because Bryce or Swift maybe gets moved potentially, and I don't know what the trade package would be, and I don't know I could probably look the contract up right now too and see when they could actually get out of the DeAndre Swift contract. I'm going to assume it's next year, but just trying to look real quick at a few where DeAndre Swift's market is currently priced. Let's pare this down a little.
It's nasty. I got one right here for you, and I actually think that I might be willing to buy at this price. 2025 308 or DeAndre Swift.
Oh, 308. Or sorry, Swift.
Yeah.
Swift.
Yeah, like that to me, I was like, damn, Casey, like maybe I'm not low enough on DeAndre Swift. Damn
it. He's got them all on the brain.
Yeah, dude, that's wild, bro. I didn't realize I liked Bryce Young that much.
Yeah.
Or Brees Hall.
Here's a few more that happened 3 days ago, 2 days ago. Here's Trey Benson or DeAndre Swift.
Easy Trey Benson, bro. We just did an episode talking about Trey Benson, man. Like, come on now. That's Trey Benson all day and twice on Sunday.
Okay. Seti Tillman or DeAndre Swift.
I'll let you take this one, but I mean,
I'm going to take the Tillman there. There. And look, this isn't, it's that I'm uncertain with what the role of Swift, where he's going to land, what he's going to be, how he's going to be. Like, I think Swift's a pretty good player. And there was a few parts of last season where Swift really turned it on and they were using Swift correctly when Thomas Davis took over and they were throwing it to Swift and getting him out in space and using him that way. So maybe Ben Johnson says, hey, year one, we're going to draft it back and we're going to use Swift and we're going to get what we can out of Swift and use these two backs, a little bit differently. And then year two, we'll either draft another guy or this guy will, fill into a full role. So it's not saying that you have to get rid of Swift, but just giving you some easy market ideas without reading like 5-person trades. And I just want to say that, we get people in the comments every once in a while talking about that our trades are terrible. Like every time we're talking about trades, these are real trades that got made on Sleeper. Like we're not making these trades up. These are actual deals that got done on Sleeper with specific guidelines, like 2 quarterback, tight end premium, 12 team, PPR. So, we can filter that and then so when we talk about this, like those were trades that actually went down with DeAndre Swift. So this is Swift and Pollard for 108. Like I'll take the 108 there,
Ship it. Like no questions asked. Ship it. So the stretch of the season that you're referring to with DeAndre Swift was, I want to say it was weeks 4, either 4 to 7 or 3 to 8. Where I'm on.
It was definitely 4
right now. Yeah, 4 to 8. He's the RB4. He has 500 some odd yards from scrimmage. I believe it's like 553 here. Yeah, 553. 4 touchdowns. And I was screaming during the season, during like redraft, because, 2 Guys 1 Pod is more redraft focused during the season. And I was like, sell him right now. Like at the end of this, like you need to be trying to sell him after week 6, because week 7, somebody might see his schedule, be looking at his schedule. And like, this is the fool's gold, like a dead cat bounce. You need to sell him right now. So he's the RB4 in that stretch. And, everybody's super duper excited about it. 22.6 fantasy points per game, and then he falls off a cliff. So if they add competition, this is not happening. I mean, over this 4-game stretch, we're talking about 85 total touches. So, roughly 21 a game, right? Like, he's not touching that for an extended period of time in 2025.
You'd be small double digits would be, correct. Would be kind of what you would expect, like 12, right? Right. Would be kind of what I would expect with Swift splitting carries. But I at least would trust Ben Johnson if he stays around or whatever he's going to do to know how to utilize him well enough, right? Get him outside, get him in space, get the ball in his hands, because he's a good player. Like I don't think badly of DeAndre Swift,
he's not bad. It's just that we know that what that looks like. So upgrading from DeAndre Swift in that offense to Jahmyr Gibbs, we know what it looks like to upgrade. And we know that Ben Johnson knows what it looks like to upgrade. Yeah. So why would he not look for a deep running back
play?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm really, if I have Swift, I'm trying to get him off of my roster. And we just gave you some trades as to what you could potentially be looking at.
There was one in there that was him for Shaheed straight up. What do you think about that?
I would have to be on the value is, if it's best ball, give me Shaheed.
Okay.
If it's best ball, give me Shaheed. If it's any other format, I might have to go.
I wonder if Shaheed finishes the season last year, if we'd probably be a lot closer to what
100%.
It seemed like Shaheed was at least going to have some good, really solid spots and shape a role on that team. Now he's back. And there was some Olave trade rumors, but Kellen Moore came out and said, we're not trading Olave. We love Olave. Olave is a great player, going to be a big part of what we're doing. So Saints could be somebody who drafts a running back or somebody who drafts a receiver. Like to see them. Or Shador at 9 to the Saints is getting a little hot right now too. I wouldn't mind that.
That might cause me to come out of my Olave denial cave of darkness.
Ooh.
If they got Shador. I'm not gonna lie. I might be willing to put aside my denial of Chris Olave if they draft Shador.
Chris Olave is going to come alive, and those comments are going to come searching for you.
Oh man, I'll be waiting. It's like Jon Snow on the battlefield. I will be waiting.
This is good. This is some fun speculation. Cleveland, another one that seems like it should be a spot where a running back goes high. We'll see. Right as of now, it seems like Cleveland skips the RB in the first round, and then right now they have him taken like a shuck in the second round. So that would kind of all but eliminate that to be having to be a third round running back. But they need one, man, right? So I can't see them leaving. But there's also no real fallout, right? I think Jerome Ford's a good enough player, right?
Right.
And I don't know where the Chubb thing stands with them, but clearly we have, it's probably unfortunately for Chubb, who people were worried about never amounting to what he could be. He was all that and more, and then unfortunately, maybe we're seeing the end of Chubb, maybe not as soon as we wanted to.
Right. His body just betrayed him. I mean, Minkah Fitzpatrick's helmet betrayed him. So we can't, hey, it was great. It was a phenomenal run. You're probably the second best back of the generation behind Derrick Henry. They're probably the third best now behind Saquon. But, that when it's over, it's over. And it could be over for him. I mean, 2 back-to-back season-ending injuries. Like, it's just, he's a free agent too.
Is he?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's just Jerome Ford right now. So that they're going to add something. It's just if they do Tyler Shuck at 33, then that kind of makes the math funny.
Right. Then it's got to be 67 or a trade back in, because I don't think they don't have 2 seconds, right?
They do not currently have 2 seconds. No.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like it would be too early for Devin Neal at 67?
No, I wouldn't mind that. We're also a big pro Devin Neal pod here as well as.
I mean, that's why I had to throw it out there.
You joined the squad in this rotation of rookies here, and happen to be a big Neal guy as well. So no, I don't think so at all. I think that would be excellent. I think he'd be perfect for what they get a pros pro in there.
So, hey, I'm telling you, you move on from Nick Chubb and you get a guy like Devin Neal. I know, guys. I'm not saying that Devin Neal is Nick Chubb. I am saying that he is extremely efficient as a runner. And if you just ignore the 40 time and watch the tape, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just that. Hey, look, that's pie in the sky stuff. I'm lying to you right now. Devin Neal's probably not going to go in the top 90 picks, and I'm okay with that, because wherever he lands, I'm still going to be. If I get a discount on Devin Neal, I'm buying it.
Yeah, we're already getting a discount because we kind of knew what the combine was going to be, and then if the Capitals, later than the third round, we'll probably get a little bit extra discount, and then depending on where the landing spot. But that's what you do, right? You go in, you do the work, and then you see where the value lands, and you decide whether or not you're okay with that value. If Devin Neal stays at 2-1 and is a 4th round pick to the Bills, then I'm probably not taking him, 2-1 Devin. You know what I mean? If I'm just using that as an example.
Right.
But if he's 308 or 39, then I'm going to have all the Devin Neal, right? So then I'll just wait because I like the talent. So yeah. So Cleveland, again, there's not a whole lot of fallout there, but the next one could be interesting. Chargers fallout. Najee, would you be worried? How probable everyone really thinks that I can't imagine the Chargers are going into next season with Najee and then whoever else is behind him currently on that depth chart.
Whoever else is behind him? Who's behind him?
Vidal, do they still have Isaiah Spiller?
I think Kamani Vidal is just one injury away, guys.
Yeah. So, I can't imagine Greg Roman and Harbs are like, yeah, these are the two we're going into the season with, right? So
there's zero chance. There's zero chance that they don't add someone. Now, like, do they do some weird stuff, like some Isaiah Spiller level stuff and take a guy in the 4th round? I don't know. I mean, honestly, like, what I would like to see them do is just give us what we want. Give the fantasy managers what we want, and give us fucking Amarion Hampton at 21. Just do it for the culture. Solidify this 102, okay? Solidify the 102 for me. Just go ahead and do it. Let's stop standing on ceremony, and let's be real. Let's get Amarion Hampton in there. He's everything that Najee Harris is, but he's actually explosive.
Right.
And you got your guy for 5 years. You can run him into the ground. You can Blake Corum him to death, Jim Harbaugh.
Right. Right.
Like, I know that's what y'all want to do. I know. We know what you want to do. And you don't want to do it with Najee for real.
By the way, Hassan Haskins is ahead of Vidal on our lad's depth chart for the Chargers.
Hassan Haskins played ahead of Kamani Vidal. So, real quick, I got into it with some Chargers fans on Twitter because I suggested that J.K. Dobbins was going to handle the lion's share of the work when he came back from IR. And they hopped in the mentions and tried to fry me. And then when he actually handled most of the workload, they all blocked me. So it was super cool. It was peak internet interaction.
That's a good day.
But yeah, I really
triple double on that day.
Hey man, I put up Wilt numbers that day. Some of my best work. So what do you think though? What do you think about this? Do you think they go running back at 21? Do you think they go kind of 53?
I think 20, 21, and 22, you have Denver, Pittsburgh, and the Chargers. And, I think at least for Pittsburgh and Chargers, stylistically, Hampton makes a whole lot of sense, right? So, Pittsburgh, you got Warren, which, I'm fine with him being a Batman. He's a Robin. He's not a Batman, right? I'm fine with him being a Robin. And I think he's a good player. It's no slight on Warren. Najee and Hampton might be kind of a Spider-Man meme-ish, but one's way more explosive than the other. That, I don't know. I guess you signed Najee because, you know what you want to do over there. You want to pound the rock. You want to be physical. You want to establish a culture and a tone. I don't know if it's just because we want it so bad, but the mockers are mocking plenty to Hampton, to the Chargers there. So schematically, I think it can work. And they're one of the few teams where it makes sense to have this just relentless hammer of a running back room that just never lets up regardless of kind of who's in there. I do have a tough time wrapping my head around spending a first round pick when you just brought in Najee, but I think most people are like, yeah, of course. Like, no, Najee's not, stopping anybody from being the top dog.
Well, here's the thing. They ran the ball 463 times in 2024. 463 times. So there's room for one guy to be excellent and another guy to have a role still. There's room for 275 carries for an Amarion Hampton and another 100 to 110 for Najee Harris. And that's still another 85 carries for studs like Kamani Vidal and Hassan Haskins.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I like Kamani Vidal. He's like a little sawed-off shotgun. Coming out of Troy, I liked him. I did. He was one of my favorite third-round players from last year.
You know why I'm doing that.
I know exactly why you're doing that. But it seems like Hampton has a decent chance of being a first rounder, and that row right there, the 19, 20, 21 seems like one of those three could easily take him. Or, it could be Travion, if any of those guys really, or it could be both, right? You could, or
Right.
Judkins. Like we could see a crazy back end of running backs run. Let's quickly look at Harris's value right now, Najee's anyway, because that's kind of a little bit what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
He would be one of the only big fallouts in that situation, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so we got Najee for a 2, Najee for a 3, and Joe Milton Superflex. Najee and 3-2 for George Pickens.
Oh my,
that's a steal.
Yeah, I feel like yeah. I'm bye Najee. Let's.
If you feel as though pretty confident within the first 2 to 3 rounds that the Chargers are going to draft another running back, is the 203 good enough to get rid of Najee Harris for you? Because I'm kind of in camp. I like buying Najee Harris, but if you're going to invest that much capital in a running back, it just feels like I'll probably take the 203 there.
100%. I've been saying, I think we've had this discussion in different format before about Najee Harris. And I said, I'm selling for just about any 2. Mm-hmm. If it's in the front end of the first round in a 12-team format, if it's before 205, ship it. I don't care what else. I'm shipping it. No, I'm shipping Najee. If it's back end, I'm going to maybe ask for, if it's 211, 212, I'm going to ask for something with Najee, maybe like a 4th, like an early 4th. Like, this guy was whoever it was, this guy, gal, was sharp enough to ask for a 4th as well. So, there's plenty of depth to get a good player. Your hit rates aren't, historical hit rates, but I don't mind this trade at all. Like, I actually love this trade. I would take, I'd take the 203. I'd take the 203 and run.
Yeah. This one's got 227 threes attached to it, but I like the core Debo or Najee with kind of the scenarios that we're playing out.
I'd go Debo there.
Yeah, with the 227 thirds, I'd take the chance on, because if Debo gets rounds back in and gives you another season and a half of what Debo can give you, and in the situation that he's in for the stylistically of the way that Kingsbury has traditionally approached calling plays, Debo could be huge if Debo can be even 75% of Debo, right? And then you give me the 227 threes in there. I don't mind that. All right, let's keep it moving here, because I'm sure it's way too much Najee talk for some people. But let's zoom in. This one was interesting, and we talked about it earlier. Texans, right?
Yes.
When you look at the visit tracker and you look at all the top guys, outside of Genty for the most part, he's kind of on a lot of these radars. He's on Amarion Hampton's top visits. He's on Caleb Johnson's top visits. He is on Quinshon Judkins' top visits. He's on Travion Henderson's top visits. So there they are, right? So, it could be a smokescreen, but it wouldn't be now. If I'm the Texans, I'm going, we need to address this offensive line, because I'm not really sure what we're doing there 100%. We just got rid of our best player. And I would want to address that before I did anything else and ride one more year of mixing out and draft somebody in the 3rd or 4th round, 5th round, whatever, and play that game. What do you think? Is this give you a caution of saying trade? Maybe we should get out of Joe Mixon now, or what do you think?
we talked about it either pre-show or post-show one day. They can get out of Joe Mixon's contract after this year.
Mm-hmm.
They gave him the extension once when they traded for him last year, but they can get out of Joe Mixon's contract after this year for fairly cheap, if I'm not, like a very small dead cap hit. So I think that they're doing their due diligence so that if they're not drafting the guy for 2025, they're drafting to come in and spell Joe Mixon in 2025. They're going to take a guy that they believe could step into that role in 2026. It's obviously not Dameon Pierce, even though he gave you a 92-yard touchdown in at the end of 2024. And it's not going to be Dare Ogunbowale. They traded Cam Akers. So they have to add to that backfield depth.
Yeah.
They have to.
It's just, is it going to be somebody of relevance? And not to belittle anybody who's getting third, fourth, fifth round capital as the running back there, because there's a lot of good ones there that could be good, but all the top dogs have visits there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we can't ignore. So we can't make definitive conclusions, right? Mm-hmm. We can't make definitive conclusions, but we can pay attention to the breadcrumbs that they're leaving us. And if they're meeting with a bunch of running backs, what does that tell you they're prioritizing in the draft? They're doing homework on a bunch of running backs, right? Yep. Like, it just, like I said, you can't draw definitive conclusions, but if I say, hey, I gotta do a thing and I gotta talk to a bunch of realtors, do you think I'm buying a house? Or you think I'm going to, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, what do you think I'm doing? I'm not buying a cake. So
yeah,
it just, that's a terrible analogy, but I'm just saying, like, you have to pay attention to what they're telling you without telling you.
Right. Right. So I kind of tend to agree, and I could see it kind of making sense. I don't think it'll be the first round, and I don't know where the Texans are at through the second round here. Let's check it out.
They're at 50. They're at 57. So they're around like that 55 to 57 range, if I'm not mistaken. 58. There we go.
58. And then I don't know if they got nothing else in that round, right?
No, it's just one in the second. Buffalo has 2, but Houston only has the 58.
Yeah, they got 25 and 58. 58 could certainly be what kind of scheme? Who's the OC down there now?
It's not Slowick. They hired a new guy, and I don't know a whole lot about him. I think he's a Broncos guy. He's a former Bronco. Give me 1 second. I did some offensive coordinator changes. Did an episode on this not too long ago.
Nick Casey coming in from the Rams, or Nick
Rams. Okay,
Nick Caley. So he was the tight ends coach and passing game coordinator for the Rams.
Okay. Where did I get Broncos from?
Coming in with having some experience with D'Amico a little bit. Probably know each other through that Shanahan-McVay connection.
Right. They're probably going to be, heavy. So that was the thing with Slowick, is they were never really 11 personnel, even though they had Tank Dell, Diggs, and Nico last year.
Right. The Niners don't run a lot of 11, right? They're one of the biggest 12 teams in the league.
Right. But that's because Shanahan makes everything look the same.
Right.
And he can still, you can put Kyle Juszczyk, you can run Kyle Juszczyk out there and make him run real routes. And he's able to, they're able to manipulate defenses. Kyle Shanahan's a master. Make no mistake. I can't say enough about how good he is offensively, but I don't know. Sometimes the chip off the old block doesn't work. I don't know what the hell that the Texans are planning on doing offensively, especially from that offense. Like, you let CJ Stroud get sacked the second most times in the league, and then you trade your all-pro offensive tackle. So, I don't have a great read on it, but they're telling you that they're doing homework on running back, so we can expect a running back to be there. It's just what that capital looks like. And with the guys that they met with, it would tell you that they're going to do it earlier than later, but I don't think that that's correct process based on what their needs are.
Yeah. Well, here's some options on Mixon real quick, and we'll keep it moving because we got a couple other things we want to touch on before we wrap this up. We got Joe Mixon and 226 twos. That happened 5 days ago. We got Hollywood Brown and 212 for Joe Mixon. We got Jerry Jeudy for Joe Mixon. Ooh, that's kind of fun. That's kind of interesting. Joe Mixon for James Conner and Aaron Jones. So some old man trades.
Yeah, just trading AARP cards.
Mm-hmm. The 202 and the 301 for Joe Mixon.
202
Tyreek Hill and Joe Mixon. Mm-hmm.
I like that.
So if you're worried and concerned, there's some options. Like you said, we have no idea, but it would seem like Houston and look, maybe it's a third or a fourth round running back for the Texans, and you can get one more good year out of Mixon being the guy for the Texans, and then he has to go somewhere else, and you have to figure out what the role is for Joe Mixon once again. He looked great last year. Like,
right.
I don't think Joe Mixon looked like he was washed by any stretch of the imagination. Now, what's going to happen when you lose one more good player behind that offensive line that already was middle of the pack at best? I don't know. We'll see. They did some shuffling. They lost a big key cog in that wheel. So would assume that whatever that 25 was is O-line,
Right. Like that's the logical assumption is, hey, we traded a guy. We've got to bring somebody in, but also you don't trade franchise left tackles. So I don't know what their plans are. Maybe they think that they have the answer in house and they just, they had an extra $100 million lineman laying around somewhere that they're going to plug into that spot.
Right. A couple other spots, New England. I don't see him. I don't see anything crazy happening at 4. I don't think they're going to take Genty, right? It's a fun speculation, but I don't think so. I feel like they paid Stevenson. I feel like Stevenson's kind of on brand with Vrabel. I feel like if they want something else, it's not going to be a high-end asset, but certainly could be wrong. They've explored some running backs.
The only thing is that both Antonio Gibson and Ramondre Stevenson, they fumble a lot. And that's the quickest way to end up in Mike Vrabel's doghouse is to put the ball on the turf. Like we're handing the ball to you to extend drives, to put us ahead of the chains, to protect our young quarterback, and you're fumbling the ball. So if that's the case, a guy has an opportunity. If they decide to spend day 2 capital on a guy, it's gonna seem really gross. And then you got Antonio Gibson fumbling the ball, you got Ramondre Stevenson fumbling the ball, and then if a guy has an opportunity early on, like if it's Dylan Sampson, that's he kind of fits both profiles for a Josh McDaniels type of back. He's not going to be the big back, but he can catch passes. He's dangerous in space. He's not the most. He hasn't been asked to run the routes, but we're talking about premium athletes who could probably fit into a different thing. Hey, what about? Never mind. I'm not even going to do it because I've already thrown my shameless Brashard Smith plug in there.
No, I was thinking it when the Donovan Mitchell or Donovan Edwards, LaQuint Allen, Woody Marks. Those guys seem like big fits in what I said McDaniels kind of wants in a back. But that was, we also have to remember that McDaniels forever was playing with Brady, right? That's the most outside of maybe Peyton Manning's egghead was maybe the most cerebral quarterback of just like, hey, I'm not going to take this sack. I know that I could just get it into this space here. We've seen them operate with so many different styles of running backs. But later having more success with maybe like, bringing in a hammer like LeGarrette and getting touchdowns and then checking it down to
James White
and all that. So
James White, Danny Woodhead, like, yeah. So, just seeing their top 30, it's like they've met with Ollie Gordon. They brought Ollie Gordon in. They brought Dylan Sampson in. I don't know how Ollie Gordon's definitely behind. He comes in behind. I can see
Ollie Gordon though there.
Yeah. I mean, it makes perfect sense. And then you get his redemption arc there. And
none of those guys scare me off of Stevenson right away though. Right.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's just if he continues to fumble the ball. That's the key there. If he fumbles a lot, there's definitely room for you're creating an opportunity for you to be in the unemployment line.
Right.
I like Dylan Sampson a lot because he's a lot tougher than his 200-pound frame would allude to, kind of like Bucky Irving. I know everybody that's small is Bucky Irving now, but he was incredible in the red zone last year. And like he's a single season leader from a touchdown yardage perspective for Tennessee. And a lot of that is him creating inside like the low red zone. So he's tougher. He runs tougher than what his frame would tell you. And you think he's just a fast space guy, but he's tough. So I would like him there too. And you're not going to have to, again, because you have Ramondre and Antonio Gibson, you're not going to, his ADP is going to get depressed even more because it's going to be perceived that he's going to a terrible landing spot.
Yeah. Let's touch on the Bengals real quick because there's, right now Travion's having a visit there and Quinshawn had a visit there. They're Ohio guys right now, and I'm going to stay firm in my camp that it would be franchise. What's the negligence to draft any of those like the guy you need to draft is Damian Martinez in the 4th round, right? You don't need to draft one of these high end guys. You're a poverty franchise. Joe Burrow is basically said either pay these guys or trade me. I would assume something along those lines.
Yep.
And you're going to invest 2nd round capital into a running back. It doesn't make any fucking sense. So,
I mean, hey, commit to the bit. Let's not waste time here. Let's not waste time here. If you're going to commit to just winning games 50 to 49, let's just do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. They let all those guys walk so that they had the cap space. They let Jesse Bates walk out the door. DJ Reader, they're playing around with Trey Hendrickson after being one of the most prolific sack artists in the entire NFL for years. Like they played around with him, and he might be out the gate after this year. So let's not act like it's completely out of the question. You've got a guy for cheap in Chase Brown for 2 more years.
That's what I'm saying. And he's been great.
He's been phenomenal. I mean, I have a lot of Chase Brown solely because one of my buddies, his wife is a huge Illini fan. So he'd be texting me like, hey, you watching this Illinois game? We're like, fuck no, I'm not watching Illinois on a Saturday. You kidding me? He's like, man, they got a really good running back. So I ended up watching, and then I saw Chase Brown. I was like, oh, that's a thing. But also, like I said, commit to the bit. Like, don't waste any more time. Like, if you're gonna do it, just commit. Yeah. Hey, we're gonna have the best possible offense that we can get onto the field. And it seems really, really dumb. It does. But I mean, they do dumb stuff all the time.
Yeah. Oh, all sorts of franchise, we get caught up in being like, well, they're a professional franchise. And of course, they all do dumb shit all the time. I mean, they do some really smart shit, and they're a professional franchise, and they have professional scouts and a professional analytic team. And some are clearly better than others at making decisions. But the Bengals, over time haven't been the best at it recently, but it's got to be all defense. Like, I just don't understand it just doesn't make any sense to me.
But does it though?
If you were to sell Chase Brown, I saw some people, and it might have been on Snoog's thing, and he was saying about these visits. Shout out to the Smash Accept guys, I guess. And he was saying, get a 26 or 27 first for Chase if you want to. You should flip them already, which I completely disagree with. And then some people were like, I don't know where these leagues are where you're getting, nobody will give you a first for Chase Brown. And I'm like, I think plenty of people would give you a first for Chase Brown. Like, and that's the thing about Dynasty is you got guys in the comments saying, I don't know what leagues you're in. And it's just like, yeah, but then you're in that league that you're in probably has a bunch of shitty trades that I would never make. Right. So it's just, the guys who are commenting with your experience of wildness is just like, I think there's plenty of people out there that would give you a 1st round pick for Chase Brown. So,
yeah,
if you feel some type of way about it, then that's what you should be doing right now. And it doesn't even need to necessarily be the 1st rounder. Go get a different player and a 2nd rounder or something,
I mean, we're looking at one quarterback, Chase Brown straight up for AJ Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Like the sentiment on Chase Brown right now is that he is a crystallized workhorse running back who is the RB5 from weeks 4 through 17. Like, that's the picture.
Right.
And people with brains like us look at the Bengals and say, hey, they've got to shore up the defense. They can't afford to be fucking about with another running back.
Right.
And they've got Zach Moss under contract for 1 more year. So, yeah, maybe they add Damian Martinez in the 4th round. That doesn't threaten me about Chase. That doesn't threaten me for Chase Brown at all. Damian Martinez is a really good player, but Chase Brown fits what the Bengals want to do offensively, and we've seen him be excellent in that role, not only from a fantasy perspective, but he was tearing shit up for the Bengals because he's got so much autonomy to operate in the middle of the field. And Joe Burrow trusts him as an outlet. So,
right.
Yeah, I don't see any issue. I don't see any issue with what you're saying at all. I'm just afraid that they big brain it and just say, yes, Daddy Joe, we'll get whatever you want.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you. I can understand both sides. I'm firmly in the other camp. I just because of it's the Bengals. I could see it. Like I don't know what you're doing. But anyway, let's move on and we'll wrap this show up here. Maybe like two more touch points I want to hit. I want to talk about Kansas City, right? Because they've kind of got the most freedom to do whatever you've got so much equity in your pocket. And I know you and Big Co talked about this a little bit on the live show that you did, right? Talked a little bit about Pacheco and, obviously the Chiefs, you probably, fans would probably say, hey, just attack that offensive line, get that, a little stronger. That was maybe your weak point. You've done a great job drafting on defense. You have Spags. Offensively, you're going to get Rice back. You have Worthy, who turned into a very worthy, no pun intended, receiver, and then you've brought back Hollywood, who all reports early on were him and Mahomes were having a nice camp together, and there was some explosive. So you have the best set of wide receivers you've had as far as your starting three, and Travis is coming back for another year. You've already got a good rotation of tight ends that you're always stabbing at tight ends around in the draft. So I say all that to say, like, in the second round, it might not be like, I know you missed on Clyde Edwards-Helaire once and you hit on the Pacheco, but like, it's not to say that you don't have the luxury of saying, hey, we're going to take whichever one of these, if any of those great running backs that we're talking about is left, or maybe we trade up a couple picks to make sure we get one and we get Travion or Caleb or Quinshawn or, somebody.
Right. I mean, they're drafting from a position, like you said, they're luxury drafting. So you can reach on a guy and it's not really a reach because he's going to be somebody who can contribute to your system immediately. Like their need is talent. They just need to continue to add to the kit bag. You've got an excellent defensive coordinator. You've been one of the best defenses in the NFL for the last couple of years. So you can address the offensive line position if there's a guy there that you like, but there's not a guy there that you like. You can then punt that and go get a player that you have higher on your board. And if they add a running back here, the only thing that I don't want to see them do is add another receiver to the receiver room. That's what I don't want to see them do, because you've got the Worthy breakout on the back half of the year. Yeah, unless it's someone that's day three capital. What'd you say?
They may, and that's fine. You don't have Hollywood forever. You see if you could find something. You got Hollywood for a year. You might see if you could find something. And I'm not going to begrudge anybody of taking a skill position late that you got. That you had last year. You alluded to it in the last show we did. Like Mike McDaniel was saying, hey, I want to draft Malik Washington in the third round, and then eventually get him in the sixth. If you have somebody that you feel that way about, and you want to take him in the sixth round, and you're the Chiefs, then I think you should for sure do that.
Yeah, you're a good team. You can do that.
Right. But here's some options for Pacheco, which actually was better than I thought it would be. 201 for Pacheco a day ago in Superflex.
Yeah, I was looking at that. I was like, I wonder if he's going to start here, because that jumped off the screen at me.
I mean, then one right next to it is the 202 for Pacheco, and it's got Josh Palmer in there, which you think whatever you want about Palmer, that's a throw in, but it's actually pretty decent value. Look, Pacheco's in the last year of his deal, I'm pretty sure too. So it's not like he's going to be an older back getting out of his first contract. He wasn't great at the end of last season, and I don't think that's the Pacheco that injury that he had. That's the Tony Pollard injury. That's the Mark Andrews injury. It takes a while to come back from that and get your explosion back, right?
Yes.
And he tried to tough through it. And what we were seeing from Pacheco in the beginning of the season was he was looking really, really, it was like, damn, he runs so wild, that Pacheco, right?
It's just Tasmanian devil style movement. Just, I'm all over the place. I'm moving everywhere, but I'm not there. And it's weird. It's fun to watch, but it's weird. So, but I do think that they move on. I mean, they've shown you that they can do the due diligence and hit on running back later in the draft. So even if they add somebody here's the deal. 3 years ago, nobody expected Isaiah Pacheco to be a thing. And then he just starts popping off in camp. And all of a sudden he's a hot name, but they've done this time and time again. For every Isaiah Pacheco, there's a Charkandrick West,
Good call out.
Yeah. There's the other guy that was front squatting like 500 pounds. I forget what his name was, but there's all these guys that they take stabs at. And so you just got to kind of play roulette and see.
It was Prince last year, and it was, every 6th, 7th round guy gets all jazzed up from them, and because they did it with Pacheco. And but they got Pacheco and Kareem Hunt for 204 here. We got Pacheco for Christian Kirk if you want to look a little lower. There's Jatavion Sanders and Pacheco for Cade Stover. But that basically is just to get this 203 here. And that's a 2 quarterback, 1.5 premium, which I love Jatavion Sanders. But still that's getting really good value for Superflex half point tight end premium at 203 to get out of the Pacheco game right now, especially if we're thinking that maybe it's a possibility that there's running back competition coming in this year. And then, I don't think people will be quite as excited about Pacheco if he's not on the Chiefs, right?
Not at all. But if you believe in Pacheco, here's a buy window for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I've got. Yeah, and you can also look at some of these as, hey, if one of these potentials, if I wait this out, I might be able to buy this guy for kind of cheap. We had Brees on the list. We had already talked about Brees, but Brees's rumors are getting steamed up, so I think there's even more opportunity to buy Brees here. And then we had listed that your Tennessee Titans is maybe a good place to end the show, since it's your unless you had anything else you wanted to touch on before we.
No, bring it. I was hoping. This is becoming a prevailing thought on Twitter X, the Twitter sphere. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about it.
Well, number one, Tennessee gets a top 30 visit with Caleb Johnson.
Right.
So that's kind of fun and interesting.
Right.
Pollard and Spears are there. I don't know. You're better to speak on the contract situation. I know Spears is on his rookie deal, but I think they give Pollard a 3-year deal.
Pollard can be cut after this year for $2 million in dead cap.
Mm-hmm. Pollard was good last year. I think Spears is good as well. I think they're a little redundant. I would like to see Spears get a better shot. But Caleb Johnson's certainly interesting there. What I really wanted to talk about was Cam Ward is almost at this point certainly going one to the Tennessee Titans.
Yes.
Should we be trying to invest in, and obviously everyone knows that at this point for the most part, but is it going to be even more once he's there and people start connecting even more dots and John Q. Public? Is Calvin Ridley somebody that we should be buying on a competitive team? Of course, like if you're a rebuilder, middling team, like Calvin Ridley probably isn't going to change anything, but you get a guy like Cam Ward who will create some explosive plays, has the live arm, is that kind of a little bit gunslinger mentality. It can get him in trouble. He could be a bit of a magician, but and we'll see some of those growing pains, I'm sure, from Cam Ward in year one. But Calvin Ridley is no slouch. He's a good player.
Not at all. Not at all. I've heard it more than once that he's a popular pick for people to emerge as one of the forgotten vets that gets a quarterback bump, and he's this year's Terry McLaurin. And I don't hate that. Mm-hmm. I don't hate that. One, because I believe in Cam Ward wholeheartedly. If Cam Ward and Calvin Ridley get paired up, I feel like that's going to be, you can get a peak value and get a couple good get a great season out of Calvin Ridley, and that there's no one else to compete for targets. I mean, you've got Chigakonkwo, who I do absolutely love, but there's nobody else. So we're going to add capital.
Kyle Williams.
Yeah, we're going to, hey, you know how, I see what you did there, but you're going to add capital. So I think that, but ultimately Calvin Ridley is the number one. They paid him all the money. He's still got a bunch of guaranteed money on his contract, and Cam Ward can take control over the middle of the field, and Calvin Ridley's an elite separator you saw him get used in that way, but Will Levis is just, I mean, as close to riding on the short bus as you can as a quarterback. So,
yeah. Yeah.
I really like Calvin Ridley, especially if Cam Ward comes there. And then Caleb Johnson, obviously coming on a top 30 visit. If he makes it to 35, I would rather see us take a receiver there. But if for some reason they do go that direction, there's more of a pathway there for Caleb Johnson than one would initially think.
Yeah, I mean that could be potentially Burden, that could be potentially Ibuka, that could be potentially some other wide receiver, Jaden Higgins, could be.
There we go.
Some other receiver who gets there's always some insane climber that goes, holy shit, that guy came out of nowhere, or that receiver typically, but it could be a running back, that they took that guy. So looking into Calvin Ridley real quick, value looks like it's all over the board. Here's one with Calvin Ridley and Amari. It's a 3.7, 3.4, 3.11. I would just do that for Calvin Ridley. I don't know where Amari Cooper's at, but that was a dreadful whatever was going on in Buffalo for him. There's a Calvin Ridley straight up for a 3.05. That's 5 days ago in a super flex. There's Calvin Ridley for Tajay Spears in a 3.11 and getting back a 4.08 in Calvin Ridley. So there is some good Calvin Ridley out here. Now, Calvin Ridley in a 27 first for Michael Penix in a 2 QB. I'm going to the Penix side on that,
Yeah, without question.
Right. So, and I'm not saying that this trade formula from Dynasty Daddy and all this stuff is the best thing ever, because you do have to kind of look at them and middle them and figure out which ones you like. And that one I don't really love. But here's Roman Wilson and Jalen Hyatt for Calvin Ridley. Like, that's
smash Calvin Ridley.
Basically just saying that some people are willing to throw Calvin Ridley away at this point because they don't think he is as good as maybe he should be. And this is Calvin Austin and a 26-1 for Calvin Ridley. So there's some like decent value. Calvin Ridley and a 26-2 for Jordan Addison. If you're the rebuilder, maybe you go that way and try to get you an Addison instead of having the old Calvin Ridley. So just some general thoughts, some landing spots, some speculation for your pleasure. Anything else before that you wanted to get off your chest here before as far as this kind of conversation?
No, I mean, I think that the one backfield that we didn't get to that I think would be a really hot spot, we touched on it in the mock draft the other day, is the Commanders. Yeah, the Commanders. That's pretty much the only one. Austin Eckler's on the last year of his deal. Brian Robinson's on the last year of his deal. They took. Did they take? No, they didn't take RJ Harvey because he went to the 49ers in that deal, but they took someone that made us all kind of pay attention. So I would be looking for them to spend capital on either day 2, between like rounds 3 and 4 is where I'm looking for them to get someone. If not, if they don't spend pick 29 on, if Marion Hampton falls that far or something like that, I would love to buy the value that's there in whoever that they get. Yeah.
No, I'm with you. Washington has been an interesting one to see some fun, different players get mocked there. I know one of the mocks had Caleb Johnson going there kind of late. That'd be kind of fun. Right. So, it would make sense to add to that, back to that situation, as much firepower on the offense as you can. As far, not in completely separate terms of where the Bengals are at, because they got a guy on a rookie deal and, their defense wasn't terrible, right, and they can, they've got the best out of it. And they should probably, again, they traded for Tunsil, right? Right. They're going the opposite way. They're loading up on that side. They brought in Debo, so it would certainly be interesting. I don't know where Brian Robinson's value stands right now, but.
If you're out here trading for Brian Robinson right now, you're playing the game incorrectly. I'll just say that.
I mean, I get Brian Robinson in some throw-in deals for sure. I mean, I don't know. I think Brian Robinson is underrated pass catcher and a pretty good back. So, had some good stretches through his young career here.
I mean, he's solid, and I mean, he's got the whole 50 Cent thing going. for him.
For sure.
He's been,
for sure.
He's been really good in stretches. I just don't think that with as deep as this running back class is, the Commanders come away without securing at least a piece of their future backfield.
Yeah, that would make some sense. RJ Harvey and Scatabo, both visits to the Niners. Don't hate that. Don't hate that.
Is there a more Niners running back? There's two running backs that kind of fit the mold for the Niners. It's RJ Harvey and Basil Tootin.
Yeah. Tootin's been one to the Chiefs a little bit too later.
Yeah.
But the Niners love a good third, fourth round running back. So Tootin could be right in there. Scatabo could be right in there.
Yeah, Scatabo's the Kyle Juszczyk replacement. Just keep him waiting in the wings.
Just a
he can do so much more. Yeah,
right. He could do so much more. Yeah, right. Scatabo's such a good receiver, man.
Exactly. Here's the thing. If he wasn't one of the exciting ones, we're not talking about Cam Scatabo. I will die on this hill.
Yeah.
Like, watch him play football and then tell me it's just, oh, he's okay. I don't know about his athleticism. His burst score was good. He put up 2,200 yards from scrimmage. What else do you need to see? Or just say that he's an exciting one and I don't want him on my team.
Yeah. Jordan James has a Commanders visit. I don't mind that a little late grab for the Commanders. So
he's a good back too. This is. Yeah. I think I saw Brugler say that he had a draftable grade on 32 running backs this year.
Yeah. Well, that's a good way to end it, because it's the same way I came in. Like, I don't think it's going to be the big dogs that come in here and disrupt your shit. It's going to be the Damian Martinez's. It's going to be an RJ Harvey. It's going to be a Scatabo or a Neal, a Giddens, a Jaden Blue, somebody like that just maybe a Jarquez Hunter does something, one of these guys, 2 or 3 of those guys are going to fuck up somebody who you weren't even on your radar to get fucked up. So that was kind of, just having a conversation today about it as we approach the draft, having some fun. I know, didn't hit you hard with the buys and sells and actionable stuff, but hey, we're just here to speculate and celebrate good times.
Just leave your thoughts in the comments. I'm lurking.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Well, hit me with the X follow, since I know that's where we're going to end this thing. Where can we find some more Chev?
Yeah. At Chev90. I'm retweeting stuff that we got going on all the time. So if you want to watch this like as often as possible. Play it on a loop in the background while you're at work. Just keep it on the low so your boss doesn't yell at you. And then, if you want to find more of me, just go to my Twitter X page at Chev90, and I'll be retweeting something that I just did.
Make sure you check it out. He's all over the place. He's doing. You can get plenty more Chev if you want him in a bunch of different places. So make sure you go follow him on the Twitters. We got all sorts of stuff with the FF Dynasty. You got a free Discord. You got a paid Discord. We got at least an extra episode every week. The last couple we've been putting out 2. So there's a lot of fun stuff going on over there. We got ADP rookie ranks. We're remodeling the Dynasty ranks right now as we speak. So we'll be ready to drop those right as the NFL draft kind of comes and we get some information. No point in updating them now and then updating them again right after the draft. So we got lots of good stuff coming over there, and Jason has been hard at work at giving you some good rookie player pages and a rookie draft kit to some extent that hopefully will be done around the NFL draft. So be sure to keep it locked and loaded here. And guys, if you haven't given us a 5-star review and you're listening, it's so easy now. You could literally just click the 5 stars and it helps us out like tremendous. Like, you guys have no idea how much the 5-star helps us out. So if you've been listening for a while and you like and you keep coming back, just hit us with the 5-star, man. It's a great way to help the pod grow. And if you're watching on YouTube and haven't subscribed, make sure you do that. Until next time, I'm Casey. That's Chev. Peace.